All right, so today we're going to dive into one of the most fascinating stories of the Mahabharata.
Okay.
Um, and looking at this episode through a specific lens, how our attachment to past perceptions can really blindside us when reality smacks us in the face.
Yeah. Sounds very relevant.
Definitely. And the source material for this deep dive is Untold Stories of the Mahabharata, specifically Episode 1, Ashwatthama's Illusion, and the Lesson of Dronacharya's Statue. So that title alone already kind of gives you a hint of where we're going with this.
Right, yeah, about illusions.
Yeah, exactly. So to set the stage, we're focusing on this warrior, Ashwatthama, and his father, Dronacharya, who is a legendary teacher and warrior himself. But Dronacharya dies during the Kurukshetra war under some, well, let's just say ethically murky circumstances, and Ashwatthama just could not accept it.
Yeah, I mean, it's understandable, right? Losing a parent is hard enough.
Totally. But the source material really digs into how Ashwatthama saw his father as this invincible, practically immortal figure.
Makes the loss even harder to process.
Oh, absolutely. You can imagine the shock. And this is where it gets interesting. Ashwatthama commissions this life-size statue of his father and puts it right there in his tent. Every single day, he's seeking guidance from this inanimate object.
Wow. I mean, it's more than just grief, right? It's like he built this whole world where his father's still there.
Exactly. And that's what the source material points to. This denial, this refusal to move on. It's like he's trapped in the past, living a fiction and ignoring the reality around him.
I think we can all relate to that on some level, right? Not to that extreme, but we all have those things we cling to even when they're not serving us anymore.
Yeah, you're right. Think about that bad habit you can't shake or that job you hate but are too scared to leave.
Or even simpler stuff like an old T-shirt you should have tossed ages ago, but you keep wearing it. Sentimental value, right?
Exactly. And it's like we're building our own statues, so to speak, things that give us comfort but ultimately hold us back.
So what happens to Ashwatthama? Does he ever break free?
Well, this is where Krishna comes in. He saw right through Ashwatthama's denial, saw how vulnerable it made him.
Krishna, always the strategist.
Always. And the source describes how he comes up with this plan. He has some Pandava warriors sneak into Ashwatthama's tent and smash the statue to pieces.
Oh, wow. That's intense.
Right. It's such a powerful image. Imagine the sound, the breaking stone, the shattering of this illusion Ashwatthama had so carefully built up.
What a moment. Like, talk about a reality check.
It's brutal, but it's also this turning point in the story. The next morning, Ashwatthama walks in, finds his father, his guide, literally in pieces. And the text says he was paralyzed, devastated, hands trembling.
So what was the impact? Did he learn anything from this?
That's the key takeaway here. The source highlights how Ashwatthama finally realizes he had been misplacing his loyalty and obedience. It wasn't his father he was following, but a lifeless statue.
So his attachment, his inability to let go, became his weakness.
Exactly. And the source points out that Krishna's victory wasn't through some grand battle, but through this forced confrontation with reality. It's thought-provoking, isn't it?
Absolutely. And it's a good reminder for all of us. What are we holding on to that's actually an illusion? Are we letting our past dictate our present?
That's the question I think we should all be asking ourselves. Have you ever had that moment, maybe years later, where you look back on something and realize it was all an illusion?
Happens to all of us, I'd say.
Right. It makes you wonder what we're all clinging to right now, something that might be preventing us from seeing things as they truly are.
Food for thought.
Food for thought indeed. So thanks for joining this deep dive. Hopefully this story will encourage everyone to examine their own attachments and maybe even let go of what's no longer serving them.
Always good advice. Thanks for having me.